77 points was scored in this game, and Jameson Williams, who is our wide receiver 7 coming into this, actually wasn't the lead guy because Amon-Ra St. Brown did play. So I owe y'all an apology for thinking St. Brown was not going to play. Hopefully you started JMO anyway, and hopefully you started the kickers in this game. Starting off with the Dallas Cowboys, do we need to update the rankings with Dak Prescott? Dak Prescott previously we had as our QB5 rest of season in fantasy and the same tier as May, Hurts, Burrow. Now that you are not going to have CD. Okay, so obviously we have to talk about CD Lamb. Typically we'll wait till we get to the wide receivers to discuss this, but it's very important that we discuss CD Lamb specifically because he impacts where we rank Dak Prescott. Like, Lamb is a good enough wide receiver that his absence from this offense, in my mind, actually does matter in terms of how we project out the Dallas Cowboys from here. Now, over the next 3 weeks for the fantasy playoffs, Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys are going to go up against the Vikings, the Los Angeles Chargers, as well as the Commanders. Of course, I just watched the same game that y'all did. We watched CeeDee Lamb go down. It was very scary. He did the Tua motion, and thank God he was able to get up. Thank God he was able to go off the field. It was very scary for a second. I can't sit here and tell you how much time CeeDee Lamb is going to miss. There's a non-0% chance that CeeDee Lamb plays next week. Would it be the most surprising thing in the world if CeeDee Lamb's not back for 3 weeks, very similar to what happened with CJ Stroud? I don't know, okay? Maybe Lamb misses a week or two. If I had CeeDee Lamb, I would assume he's not playing next week. Keep in mind, this was a Thursday night game, so he's going to have 10 days to recover until next Sunday. But if I was a betting man, I'd probably say Lamb's probably not playing week 15 and is back in week 16. Again, I'm just guessing. I'm an idiot with a freaking turkey hat on my head because I'm not good enough at fantasy football. So I don't know if you should listen to me. But for the fantasy playoffs, I may rather have Joe Burrow with the healthy T. Higgins and Jamar Chase than Dak Prescott with a somewhat banged up Lamb. So we will maybe move Dak down one spot, but honestly, not much changes there. Going over and looking at what we have with Javonte Williams. Javonte gives you 0 receiving yards, but logs 2 receptions, 19 total touches, 21 total opportunities. Javonte was a set it and forget it, top 10 must start running back every single week coming into this. Javonte is going to remain that after this game. Nothing changes here with Javonte. Going over to the receivers, CeeDee Lamb was legitimately killing it. CeeDee Lamb looked very good from the very jump. I mean, the catch that he almost had when he went down with the concussion would have given him a touchdown, would have been an incredible play. And CeeDee Lamb looked like he was trending towards being the wide receiver 1 for the Dallas Cowboys again. Now, again, we've already gone through this. I don't know if he is actually going to be playing or not next week. And if I was given the opportunity right now, of course, y'all have heard me say it 1,000 times. I have a bye on my own with my fantasy team. So it doesn't matter for me for week 15. But hypothetically, if I was one of y'all and I had CeeDee Lamb and I had to play in the week 15 to advance in the playoffs, I would feel safer with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would rather have Adams. I'd rather have Nico. I'm maybe going to move Lamb down to 9. It's extremely difficult to know this again. And then when it comes to George Pickens looked bad in this game. There's no getting around that, right? George Pickens looked like of course, I'm an idiot. What do I know? But he didn't look like he wasn't giving effort out there. George Pickens looked like he wasn't trying. Going through and looking at the games in which George Pickens had no CeeDee Lamb earlier this season, though, this dude was legitimately incredible. If flockfantasy.com wants to load. Okay, here we are. But like, again, you can go through some of these games, 33 fantasy points, 32 fantasy points. Like George Pickens coming into this game was the wide receiver 4, averaging 19.77 points per game. So yes, I know the no-name wide receiver in Dallas looked better in this game. Definitely scored way more fantasy points. The dude dropped 26. Do you want to pick him up? Hell to the no. There's no reason to. For the Dallas Cowboys pass catchers, the big thing that changes is Jake Ferguson goes back to being in a top level tight end. Jake Ferguson was the tight end 1 overall in fantasy when you had no CeeDee Lamb. If y'all remember this, we had Ferguson as the buy low candidate when CeeDee Lamb went down for the first time this season. And then when CeeDee Lamb came back and Jake Ferguson was the number 1 overall tight end in fantasy, we had him as that sell high candidate. We had completely done a 180. And yeah, Jake Ferguson's going to crush if you have no Lamb. But the only guys that are startable here in Dallas are Dak, Javonte, Lamb, Pickens, Ferg. If Lamb doesn't play, you just start the same guys. You just have one less. And then the other players become more interesting with Jake Ferguson and George Pickens. Even if it didn't happen in this one game, we've seen a super large sample. Don't get excited about a no-name wide receiver in Dallas just because he had one good game. And don't go out there and cry about George Pickens because he had one bad one. Okay. Now, let's go over to the next offense. Jared Goff came through, picked apart a garbage Dallas Cowboys defense. And oh dear God, can we all not only laugh at me that I'm an idiot and I have a turkey hat on my head, but who was you better be in this chat right now. Whoever was in the chat after the Thursday night games and made me crash out because they tried telling me the Dallas Cowboys had a good defense because the Dallas Cowboys had one impressive game. Where are you now? Where are you? The Dallas Cowboys defense is still garbage. Okay. And obviously Detroit took advantage. Looking at the running back usage, David Montgomery had a rushing touchdown. Cool. David Montgomery is still not really getting involved. Jahmyr Gibbs is still phasing him out. David Montgomery remains just essentially a desperation start. That's a premium handcuff. If Gibbs were to go down, Montgomery's a league winner. Now, looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, I wish that I was smart enough to have ranked him higher and to drafted him in more underdog best ball drafts. Like, I'm going to be honest with y'all. A lot of very smart people ranked Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Saquon Barkley this year. Most people did. I didn't. Now, I didn't have the opportunity in my own league to draft Gibbs or Barkley. Gibbs went at pick 4. I was drafting at 6. I got Barkley then. But to be honest with you, if Gibbs was there at 6 and Barkley was there, I may have taken Barkley anyway. And Gibbs just looks like 10,000% better. Like, it's not even remotely close. This offense is much better. Jahmyr Gibbs is so dynamic from a talent perspective. With what Jahmyr Gibbs gives you as a receiver, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the most talented running back in the NFL. The big focus that we have to have at this point will be the schedule going into the future when you're looking at the top running backs. Because for me, I had Taylor, CMC, and Gibbs all in the same tier, and it's up to you. If you wanted to look at the schedule that you're going to get with Gibbs, he does have a tough matchup against the Rams in week 15, a tougher matchup against the Vikings in Minnesota in week 17, and then the matchup in week 16 is fine against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But look at what he has done over the past 5 games. Over the past 5 games, he has scored 37 or more points in 3 of them. The utilization that you get as a receiver on top of the rushing touchdowns for being in this good offense, it's a cheat code. let me compare this to the matchups that we have with the other players. Jonathan Taylor in the final 3 weeks, Seattle, San Fran, and Jacksonville. Obviously, Seattle's a very tough matchup there. McCaffrey in the final 3 weeks gets Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago. I actually probably prefer these matchups, but I'm just going to do it. Who cares? With the way he's trending, with the fact that the Detroit Lions, they need to be winning these football games. We're going to put Gibbs the number 1 overall player in fantasy. We already said in videos earlier this week, he was our number 1 running back this week. He was our number 1 player in fantasy this week. 1, because I thought Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't going to play. And 2, just love the matchup and the projections against the Dallas Cowboys because sportsbooks had the Detroit Lions the second highest scoring offense in the league. Then going over to the pass catchers, Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't supposed to play in this game. I'm not going to sit here and say that he looked hobbled, blah, 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 but I'm going to assume that St. Brown wasn't 100%. And now that he's about to get 10 days to rest until we get to the fantasy playoffs, and he's coming off a game where he had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 92 receiving yards. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm just going to go right back to putting as the top 5 wide receiver. I was a clown for moving him so low in our rankings after last week's ankle injury. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I thought Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be missing a couple weeks here. I did not expect him to play in this game. This was a very big surprise on my end. But again, like I told y'all from the jump, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor. So I'm here on YouTube with the turkey hat. And then going over to JMO, we had jacked up JMO so high in these rest of season rankings until Amon-Ra St. Brown was good to go for this game. Then we had to move Jameson Williams back down a bit. But Jameson Williams, I do think at this point, you can say that, honestly, he's probably in the same tier with some of these other guys. I'd probably rather have him over Igbuka at this point. Maybe over Devonta Smith. Waddle's right there. So I think nonetheless, you put JMO as a consistent wide receiver too. Especially now that you have no Sam Laporta, right? He's just looked so much better in this offense with no Laporta. And then Isaac Tesla, doesn't matter. He almost had a really, really cool touchdown catch, but didn't happen. And then, yeah, I don't think any tight end is relevant in Detroit. We said that from the jump, even with Laporta going down. But I think that is all I'm going to have. I will give a shout out, of course, to 1, the kicker I started this week, Jake Bates, and 2, the Dallas Cowboys kicker. If y'all want to see something pretty funny, here's the Flock League matchup between Mr. Zachary Savage and Mr. Danny Ladd. And I told the Flock League I wasn't going to spoil anything, but if y'all watch the Flock League video tomorrow, y'all are going to see, obviously things get heated between people in the league, right? The video tomorrow, things got so heated that somebody got kicked from the league. We may not even have a 12th member anymore. Somebody maybe got heated here with Danny. But anyway, what's really funny is Brandon Aubrey dropped 24 points in comparison to Brandon Aubrey outscored Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Aubrey, 5 field goals and an extra point. One of those field goals going for more than 60 yards. But I think that's all I got for y'all. And yeah, y'all see who got kicked in. Okay, so I can't tell y'all too much, but 1, somebody got kicked from the league, like kicked from the sleeper app. Like the commissioners went in there and removed him entirely. And then somebody, a different person, left our Discord group chat where we send in all our clips and where we talk all the time because he said he's done with it. So it's getting heated. But yeah, y'all see tomorrow. But I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Much love. And yeah, hopefully you didn't have to go up against Butter Aubrey. Hopefully you didn't have to go up against Jahmyr Gibbs. Hopefully you don't have CeeDee Lamb. And if you do, hopefully he's back for next